Hello citizens of the world, and welcome to Crash Course AP World History. I'm Mario Gafati, and with me I have Camille and Luis. In this last Crash Course episode, we will be discussing the long 19th century and all that is encompassed by it, its impacts in social, political, and economic life, and its relevance in history. The first thing to note is that the period started in 1750. Historians sometimes get lazy with names and overgeneralize history. Also known as the Age of Revolution, the long 19th century was a time of change and foundation of key ideas such as the Enlightenment, a period in which the world enters a modern age, being led by the nations of the West, consisting of Europe and the United States, with its first significant event being the French Revolution. The French Revolution started the formation of innovative ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity, and despite overthrowing an authoritarian regime, to establish another one. Its influence was indeed notorious. The French ideals were the basis of several revolutions, including those that took place in the Americas, those being in the US and many of Central and South American nations. Haiti, for instance, the richest colony in the world at the time, gained its independence through the only completely successful slave revolt in recorded history. The slaves attacked their masters so savagely that they looked like, wait for it,
the Mongols.
In the US, the Americans resented several reforms introduced by the British, and so, guided by the French ideals, they fought for 8 years from 1775 to 1783, and gained their independence, after which they drafted a constitution and created the United States of America. More importantly, because of the ideas that were created during the Revolution, Enlightenment thinkers such as challenged the previous notions of society and preferred rationality and logic. Cesar Beccaria said, "Happy is a nation without history." Locke said, "All mankind being all equal and independent, no one ought to harm another in his life, health, liberty, or possessions." Rousseau said, "No man has any natural authority over his fellow man." And Voltaire said, "This agglomeration which was called, and which still calls itself the Holy Roman Empire, was never holy, nor Roman, nor an empire."
Now let's dive into the world of economics in the long 19th century. Now, first off, we have to acknowledge the major event. That was the Industrial Revolution. With industrialization came new machines, advanced technologies, and mass production. Moreover, we see a swift shift from feudalistic tendencies into capitalist ideals. We see how mercantilism becomes obsolete in this new world. We also see the emergence of two new classes, the industrial working class and the middle class. Moreover, agriculture is thrown out of the way. We see industry taking its place and commerce leading the way as the best and most ideal factor regarding international trading and global patterns. Now, moreover, we see the start of a clash between capitalist ideals and communist ideas. Karl Marx, with his Communist Manifesto, calls upon an ideal communist society in which everyone is equal. This is going to be manifested through revolutions that will occur, and we will see more about it in later episodes regarding the Cold War and communism. Now, moreover, we have to acknowledge the inventions that enable this economic growth. We see inventions such as the steam engine, the spinning jenny, hydraulic power, locomotive, and telegraph. These inventions would prove key, facilitating communications and transportation, thus increasing commerce and economic growth. Moreover, the Industrial Revolution and the economy came with several new factors and changes. Amongst them were the increased material wealth, extended life, people are now working outside their home, there's a mass migration to cities for employment, and there's a substantial population growth. All of this because of the Industrial Revolution and the new economy of the long 19th century.
Major social event was feminism, a new movement that was also present in this time period. A notorious example being the vindication of the right of the woman, which presented females as equal to men and therefore urged social reforms. Moreover, Enlightenment thinkers and progressive ones would agree that women in rational world should not be subjected to a second place in society. The French Revolution challenges social inequalities and opens door for women's fight for equality. In October 1789, 6,000 working-class women marched on government office in Paris, demanding cheaper bread. Women in this period are largely confined to the home and are expected to marry in order to secure status and privilege. Voltaire, Locke, Jefferson, and Montesquieu and others make the quest for freedom their central intellectual focus. As these male scholars challenged tyranny and divine rights, women began to question the tyranny of men over women. In the 1870s and 1880s, social purity feminism emerges, arguing against alcohol, violence, and sexual excess as masculine evils that threaten women and families. Partly the most lasting feature of the long 19th century is the rise of the national identity, countries in Europe often rivaling each other with a new sense of self-pride. Nationalism was a new tendency which saw citizens differentiating from the rest of Europe through their nations, a new self-sense which was long ignored. This led to a major conflict between the states, and it was notoriously evidenced in the First World War, in which, fueled by nationalistic ideals, countries like Germany, Great Britain, and Serbia fought for 4 years. Publications such as the Protocols of the Elders of Zion first appeared in 1905 in Russia, generated or provided support for theories of an international Jewish conspiracy. In 1915, at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, the major powers of Europe tried to restore the old dynastic system as far as possible, ignoring the principle of nationality in favor of legitimism, the assertion of traditional claims to royal authority. With most of Europe's people still loyal to their local province or city, nationalism was confined to small groups of intellectuals and political radicals. Furthermore, political repression, symbolized by the Carlsbad Decrees published in Austria in 1819, pushed nationalist agitation underground. Nationalism and feminism were amongst the rising movements and themes seen in the long 19th period. Nations were eagerly forming an identity of their own, while women had a bigger impact in society and acquired rights which were previously ignored. This time frame set in the foundation for a new world, one of the high cultural diversity and with a much more equal mentality towards women.
Moreover, imperialism was seen throughout the world. Colonies and more colonies of European superpowers, such as Great Britain, were seen in Africa, and the scramble was for real. Colonization was a key part of the 19th century, in which a new network of trade and communication was established. This was seen in the 1880s and 1890s, when the sudden wave of conquest in Africa by European powers, better known as the Scramble for Africa, took place. Britain obtained most of Eastern Africa, France most of Northwestern Africa. Other countries such as Germany, Belgium and Portugal, Italy and Spain acquired lesser amounts. A key feature of the concept of imperialism is that it was fueled by Charles Darwin's social Darwinism. This made the Europeans believe that they were better than all others, that they were inherently better, and so they felt entitled to Africa. Culture was also drastically affected in the conquered nations. European influence would spark new traditions and customs, reflecting their imperialistic tendencies. Colonial life was another element to take into account during the 19th century. The expansion of the Europeans into several other nations led to a surge in the demand for raw products from Asia and Africa, therefore creating a global market for trading, which the Europeans exploited for their advantage. Take for example the Opium Wars. Great Britain forcefully made China their trading partner, utilizing heavy military intervention. With the industrialization of nations, manufactured goods were often flooded in the market, while artisans and individual merchants were rapidly replaced and forced labor utilized. This period was characterized by the specialization and division of labor and the development of new ideas.
Now, in conclusion, This was a period of change in the political and social spectrum. There are a lot of reform movements. There are a lot of economic changes, transformations. Trading unions were formed and legislations were created. The long 19th century is a bridge that connected the whole world through trading and imperialism. Globalization was a new phenomenon in history, created in the long 19th century. Now, new economies emerged in regions such as Latin America, and commercialization was a new factor into play. While there still was direct and indirect ruling from several European nations, the world was now united. The long 19th century was an age of revolutions, renovations, and ultimately connections, paving the way for a new type of world, one with a global market and interdependent relations. Thank you for watching. This has been Crash Course AP World History.